This work is a work of fiction. It has absolutely no relation to any real persons, organizations, or events. In March 2026, as the world was engulfed in an energy crisis, the words were spoken in the Oval Office of the White House. It all began with a perfectly reasonable yet dangerous question from an accompanying Japanese reporter. Mr. President, Japan and the U.S. are supposed to be close friends, but why didn't you tell allies like Japan in advance about your war plans in Iran? We, the Japanese people, are very confused. Trump leaned back in his chair, glanced at Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi, who maintained a frozen, expressionless face beside him, and smirked. Listen, we wanted surprise. Who knows better than surprise than Japan, right, Sine? Why didn't you tell me about Pearl Harbor? The reporter grimaced as camera flashes went off. For Trump, this was nothing more than his usual joke, a way to roast an ally and assert dominance. However, Prime Minister Takaichi's silence was not the sort that would later be hailed on YouTube as peak comedy. Cold, hard numbers lined up in her mind: the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, a 95% dependence on Middle Eastern oil, rapidly dwindling reserves. Furthermore, America had arbitrarily withdrawn the missile defense systems meant to protect the Far East and redirected them to Israel. Takaichi slowly raised her head, silenced the interpreter with a gesture, and spoke in a tone sharp enough to silence even a native speaker. Mr. President, a surprise attack only serves to unite the enemy country and make them stronger, bringing up phrases like a day of infamy. The strategic naivety of thinking a surprise attack would conveniently foster war weariness in the opponent was, one might say, one of the causes of Japan's defeat in that war. That being said, in Japan we say, "A cornered rat bites the cat." I, if I had lived in that era, would have undoubtedly volunteered for the military first thing, as a rat biting the cat. Well, there were no female soldiers back then, though. Trump's smirk vanished. A cornered rat bites the cat? Yes, Mr. President. Regarding your request to dispatch minesweepers, even if our country risks the lives of our personnel to clear the waters, not a single tanker will move unless Lloyd's provides insurance. We are not foolish enough to entrust our nation's destiny to an uninsured strait, and we cannot force our personnel into meaningless deaths. Takaichi tightly gripped her trump card, the unique diplomatic pipeline left behind by the late Shinzo Abe, who had once faced Supreme Leader Khamenei in Tehran. We are currently, quite literally, driven into a corner, and a cornered rat, in order to survive, may sometimes join hands with the party its owner despises the most, for instance, the sole winners in this crisis, Russia or perhaps Beijing. Trump snorted and spread his hands wide. Sine, is that a threat? But let me tell you one thing. This is the Oval Office. There are no corners in this room for a rat to be driven into. Takaichi, her eyes wide open, offered an absolute zero smile. Yes, I know. It saves the rat the trouble of backing into one. Standing behind Trump, Vice President Vance stared at Takaichi's profile with eyes filled with a dark elation. It was the exact moment the sandcastle known as the Western Bloc began to audibly crumble. The next morning, the front page of the Washington Post would feature a massive headline, a twist on the iconic slogan of the late Prime Minister Abe. Japan is back? No, Japan bites back. The lead paragraph of the article concluded as follows: "Japan is back. That was the promise of the late Prime Minister Abe. But yesterday, in the Oval Office, his successor showed Washington a completely different, chilling reality. A cornered ally is no longer an obedient pet. It is ready to bear its fangs."